When my daughter-in-law told me to leave, I smiled instead of crying. I could feel my heart tightening, but I didn't let it show. I just nodded, as if everything she said was fine, but inside, something broke. I had spent years loving her, welcoming her into our home, sharing laughter and meals, and she had planned this behind my back. I remember that day clearly. The sun was hidden behind gray clouds. I had just finished sweeping the kitchen floor when she came in, her smile wide and friendly, but her eyes were cold. "Mom," she said softly, "I think it's time for you to find your own place." I nodded. I smiled, of course. I said, my voice calm, I didn't want to make a scene. I wanted to hold on to the dignity I had left. But as I walked to my room that evening, I replayed every small interaction, every moment I thought she cared and realized she had lied. Everything she said, every smile, every word, it was false. I wondered how someone could betray a person who had loved them so deeply. Someone who had treated them like family. I couldn't sleep that night. The house, once full of warmth, felt empty. Even the photos on the walls seemed to mock me. She smiled at me, yes, but behind my back she had planned a life without me in it. I tell this story now not out of anger, not out of revenge, but because sometimes life teaches you lessons quietly through betrayal and heartbreak. And sometimes the only way to survive it is to breathe, to pause, and to remember who you are. I want you to hear this story not as someone seeking sympathy, but as someone sharing a truth, a story about love, trust, and the quiet strength that comes after heartbreak. I come from a small family, a quiet household, nothing fancy, just simple lives. My son, the only child, was my world. I raised him with care, patience, and love. When he grew up and met her, I wanted nothing more than to welcome her into our lives. She was young, lively, full of charm. When we first met, I remember thinking, she's sweet. She will be a good daughter. We laughed together, cooked meals, celebrated birthdays. I helped her with small things from household chores to advice on marriage. I treated her as my own daughter because, in truth, that's how I saw her. At first, everything seemed perfect. She smiled at me, called me Mom, and included me in her life. My son was happy. That was all I ever wanted. Every evening we would gather around the table, share stories, laugh at silly jokes, and it felt like home. But small things started changing. At first I didn't notice. Maybe I ignored the signs because I trusted her, because I wanted to believe in the warmth she once showed. Maybe that's what makes betrayal so painful, the way it creeps in slowly, disguised as normalcy. I recall evenings when I would sit in the living room and notice her whispering with my son. I didn't eavesdrop, but the laughter seemed forced. Sometimes she would glance at me and smile, but there was something fleeting in her eyes. Something that told me she wasn't entirely honest. I remember the kitchen too. I loved to cook, and I would spend hours preparing meals, making sure everything was just right. She would thank me, smile at me, sometimes even hug me, but there were moments when I would catch her rolling her eyes when she thought I wasn't looking. Those moments were small, but they added up. We had family dinners, and at first she seemed eager to join. But slowly, she started avoiding conversations with me, laughing at my stories only when my son laughed. She began to make excuses, small ones at first, to avoid spending time. I tried not to think about it. I told myself I was imagining things. Maybe she's busy, maybe she's tired, maybe I'm overreacting, but deep down, something in me sensed the change. Something in me knew that the warmth she once gave wasn't real anymore. And then came the day she told me to leave. It began with little things, small misunderstandings, subtle comments, quiet frustrations. She would say things like, "It's not about you," or "We can handle this ourselves," in a tone that didn't sound rude but cut deep anyway. I remember one evening I had baked my son's favorite pie. I brought it to the dining table, smiling, expecting gratitude. She looked at it, then at me, and said casually, "Oh, that's nice, but we don't really eat that anymore." I paused. My smile faded. I put the pie down gently and nodded. "All right," I said quietly. Later, I asked my son about it. He shrugged. "Mom, maybe she's just tired." I nodded, forcing myself to believe him, but the truth was she had stopped appreciating me, my presence, my care. I noticed the whispers, the secretive phone calls, the sudden changes in routine. She began spending more time away from home, claiming errands, friends, or work. The house started to feel unfamiliar. Rooms that were once filled with warmth felt cold. Then came the comments in front of others. Subtle yet sharp, she would joke about me being old-fashioned or too traditional, laughing lightly, expecting me to laugh with her. I didn't. I smiled instead, pretending it didn't hurt. I tried to talk to her. Once, gently, I asked, "Is something wrong? Have I done something to upset you?" She shook her head, smiled, and said, "No, Mom. Everything's fine." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to trust her words, but deep down a knot had formed in my stomach. Something felt wrong. I could sense it. The warmth was gone. Even my son started noticing the tension. I saw it in his eyes, the confusion, the worry. He loved his wife, yes, but he also loved me, and now he was stuck in the middle, unsure of how to bring harmony back. Family gatherings became tense. I remember one dinner vividly. She had invited her friends over. I sat quietly at the corner of the room, trying to join the conversation, trying to smile, but her friends whispered, glanced at me strangely. I realized then, they didn't see me as family. I wasn't part of their world. I started avoiding questions, avoiding interactions. I kept to myself, hoping this phase would pass. Maybe she would return to the person she once was. But the whispers became plans. I didn't know it yet, but behind the smiles, decisions were being made about my future in home. She had started convincing my son, slowly, gently, to accept the idea of a home without me in it. The tension grew. I could feel it in the silence, in the unspoken words, in the pauses at the dinner table. The smiles were gone, the warmth had vanished, and yet she smiled at me every day, pretending everything was fine. The turning point came unexpectedly. I had been cleaning the living room when I heard them whispering. At first I ignored it. Then a word caught my attention, move. My heart sank. I waited until the conversation ended, then gently asked my son, "What are you two talking about?" He looked uneasy. "Mom, it's complicated," he said. Complicated. That word stayed with me for days. I tried to ignore it, tried to believe there was some misunderstanding, but the signs were everywhere. Then came the day she told me directly. She smiled at me, as always. "Mom, it's time for you to have your own place," she said, as if it were a simple favor. I froze. My hands clenched lightly, my heart thudded, but I smiled. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I just nodded. Walking to my room that evening, I remembered every small moment, every shared laugh, every meal I had prepared for them. All of it gone. The betrayal was sharp, but what hurt most was the calmness in her voice, the pretense of kindness. She had lied, manipulated, and built a life without me in it, and I had been blind. I confronted my son later. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, voice soft, almost whispering. "I didn't know how," he said. "I didn't want to hurt you. I wanted to scream, to cry, to lash out, but I didn't." I understood in a quiet, painful way that life sometimes unfolds like this. People change, trust breaks, and yet we have to find a way to survive. I packed my belongings slowly, carefully. I didn't want to leave in anger. I wanted to leave with dignity. Every object I touched reminded me of years of love and care, and now I had to let it go. That night, I slept on the couch for the last time. The house was silent, too quiet. I felt emptiness I had never known before. The betrayal had cut deep, but I realized something. I was still here. I was still me. After I left, I found a small apartment nearby. It wasn't much, but it was mine, quiet, simple, peaceful. I started to rebuild my life slowly, day by day. At first, the loneliness was unbearable. I missed my son, missed the warmth of home. But gradually, I found comfort in small routines: cooking, reading, walking in the park, writing letters I never sent. I thought a lot about forgiveness. I asked myself, can I forgive her? Can I forgive the betrayal? And slowly I realized forgiveness isn't about them, it's about you. Forgiveness is about letting go, about freeing your heart from bitterness, about choosing peace over pain. I wrote letters not to send, but to release. I poured my feelings onto paper. I acknowledged the hurt, the betrayal, the sadness, and then I released it. I also reconnected with friends I had lost touch with, neighbors who had quietly supported me and my own inner strength. I realized that life isn't just about the people who hurt us, it's also about the ones who remain, who care, who remind us of our value. I spoke to my son Sometimes, cautiously, I told him I loved him and I would always be proud of him. He cried when he realized how much pain I had felt, how blindsided I was, but we talked. Slowly, we rebuilt a connection, carefully, with honesty, and as for her, I let her go. I let the anger, the betrayal, the sadness drift away like leaves in the wind. I no longer needed her smile or her lies. I was free. I found joy in simple things: the smell of rain, the taste of tea, the quiet of early mornings. I realized that happiness isn't in someone's approval. Happiness is in knowing who you are and choosing peace every day. Now, when I think back, I don't feel anger. I feel calm. I feel strong. I feel grateful for the lessons life taught me, even through betrayal. I learned that smiles can be deceiving. I learned that love can be complicated. I learned that the most important relationship is the one you have with yourself. If you are listening to this and you have been hurt, remember this: it's okay to feel sad, it's okay to grieve, but don't let the pain define you. Let it teach you, let it make you stronger. I still love my son, still care for my family, but I have found my own space, my own life, my own happiness. I have learned that peace is a choice, and it starts within. Sometimes people will smile at you and lie behind your back. It's painful, it's unfair, but it's also a chance to discover your strength, your courage, and your resilience. I survived, I healed, I forgave, and in that I found hope. Life continues. People come and go, but the lessons remain, and the most beautiful lesson I have learned is this: you can find warmth, love, and peace within yourself, even when the world turns cold. And that, my dear listener, is a kind of happiness no one can take away.